Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, emoji poggers. Kenna said, ah. Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, skull. Ghosty said, hello. Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, John Madden, John Madden, John Madden. Mars, Red said, lolololol. Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, Ayu. Kenna said, the names are so long I'm crying.
Captain Cas/Cas said, you can set nicknames.
Miller Purple Heart said, we might have done too much with the emojis, oh dear. Kenna said, yeah, I can turn off reading emojis too. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, Cadmium spelled out name is amazing. Loudly crying. Mars, Red said, sweet. Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, animated emoji wheeze. Mars, Red said, Amagus. Cadmium Sparkles Heart Suit, Blue Heart said, no relation to Captain Sparkles. Common misconception. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, you will be Cadmium Sparkle Heart Suit, Blue Heart to me from now on. Cadmium said, here okay, I'll temporarily remove them, KJLSDFLK. I've been Sean. Ghosty said, I wanna see what this does. Kenna said, I thought I fixed it but apparently not, LMAO. OMG, wait, I did it. Profesh server runner here. Cadmium said, okay, so I can put my emojis back. Ixy. Ghosty said, darn it, it didn't run the Yancy emoji. Kenna said, I think so. Hey.
Captain Cas/Cas said, dang.
Cadmium said, Sag? At what cost? Kaz, why do you have a different voice? Kenna said, Kaz, how did you do that? Yeah, literally. Mars, Red said, I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. It's cool.
Captain Cas/Cas said, because I've messed with settings before on this spot.
Kenna said, this so fucking funny.
Captain Cas/Cas said, none of the commands are working so.
Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, this is so cool, JAVSKSVSKS. Cadmium said, how do? I want special voice me. Ghosty said, this is why we can't have nice things.
Captain Cas/Cas said, it would be /SetiSpeak or something like that.
Kenna said, I probably have some weird setting where only a mod can fuck with it. Miller Purple Heart said, the immediate derailment when new shiny toy in the server. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, for real. LMAO. Mars, Red said, it's like a shiny rock. I love it. Kenna said, I was gonna just enable it for everyone like this, but we were worried the bot would get stuck reading so messages, hey. It's doing good though.
Captain Cas/Cas said, yes.
Mars, Red said, I just realized it's making me British. No. Cadmium said, I tried to get it to let me configure in DMS, but it refused. Sad face.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, imagine being British.
Kenna said, a legal punishment. Miller Purple Heart said, it's definitely better for this when there are less people and chat goes at a slower speed. Mars, Red said, send me to the gallows. Kenna said, let me take a look. Heh. Ghosty said, anyway, what are we supposed to be doing? Are people supposed to be asking me questions?
Captain Kaz/Kes said, oh yay.
Miller Purple Heart said, yes. Cadmium Sparkles Heartsuit Blue Heart said, it's okay, I'm just seeking to be silly. Kenna said, yeah, it seems good for Q&As like that. Wait, why? Cadmium Sparkles Heartsuit Blue Heart said, so turns out it is still reading emojis KJLSFDKL. Kenna said, why emojis again?
Captain Kaz/Kes said, the part of Bill you enjoyed making the most.
Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, hello Ben. Ghosty said, the vibes and oaks. Cadmium Sparkles Heartsuit Blue Heart said, how long have you been working in this? Oh.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, the oaks.
Cadmium Sparkles Heartsuit Blue Heart said, OCS, being, oaks. Ghosty said, a few months at least. Cadmium Sparkles Heartsuit Blue Heart said, Ben just came in then dipped back out it seems. Oh no. We're all a British lady right now, except Kaz, who is not. Kenna said, oh, I was wondering why it didn't read, but you have to be in VC. Miller Purple Heart said, are there any other anomalies, entities aside from the curse that you might want to incorporate down the line?
Captain Kaz/Kes said, I got special vest privilege.
Ghosty said, yes, but I have decided on them yet. Miller Purple Heart said, very real. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, now that's the quote of the month. Kenna said, do you have any refs or ideas for how your OKs look? Your okays? Ghosty said. One moment. Kenna said, hell yeah.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, OCs.
Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said. Miller Purple Heart said. Kenna said, it is being so stubborn about the emojis. Miller Purple Heart said, okay, so it's only reading the emojis in usernames Guru.
Captain Kaz/Kes said.
Cadmium Sparkle's Heartsuit Blue Heart said, "That's like the only place we do not want it to read the emojis KJLSDFLK. Kenna said, "I can manually set nicknames. After this I'll foots with it so anyone can change their settings." Ghosty sent an image file and said, "I don't have anyone's for Onyx, but here's one for Maury."
Captain Kaz/Case said,
Mars, Red said, "I love ITTTTT. Kenna said, "Pretty art." Cadmium Sparkle's Heartsuit Blue Heart said, "Shocked face." Miller Purple Heart said, "I've only had Maury for less than an hour but..." Cadmium said, "I've shown my emojis once more." Ghosty said, "I'll share more art of them in the art channel later."
Captain Kaz/Case said, "Yay."
Ghosty said, "Any other questions?" Astral Rec ringed Planet. Michael said, "Nicey. I just wanted to ask if there is more art." Kenna said, "I have to know more about the relationships and their dynamics." Kenna said, "Also at Everin_Inc. came in here for a sec, she's laughing at us." Ghosty said, "I don't know how to explain it, but Onyx and Bim have sort of a black cat x black cat dynamic. I also don't know how to explain Maury's friendship with Illinois and Yancey." Miller Purple Heart said, "Peak dynamic I never see honestly." Ghosty said, "Oh, and Onyx has a cat named Cole."
Captain Kaz/Case said, "Maury, Yancey and Illinois surreal TBH."
Kenna said, "You should try to do one of those like ship dynamic prompts, like, who would need the jar open, and who would be annoyed to open the jar, stuff like that." Obsessed.
Captain Kaz/Case said, "Do you perchance have an image of Cole?"
Miller Purple Heart said, "Kitty cat." Ghosty said, "Sadly no, but I will post it once it's drawn." Cadmium said,
/case said, ping me when you do : C.
Kenna said, is there any other miscellaneous thoughts or ideas you have about the O? I thirst for knowledge. Ghosty said, its vibes are pretty similar to the WKMO I'm working on. Kenna said, I'm curious about that. Miller Purple Heart said, well, I'm excited for that too now. Ghosty said, funnily enough, I've worked on the WKMO less, but I have more written for it. Kenna said, that's how it is sometimes. Miller Purple Heart said, happens to the best of us. Kenna said, I get frozen sometimes when I have a very specific idea and end up writing Lee's. Lee's. Cadmium said, not the bot calling out your typo. Kenna said, this bot is brutal about typos. Literally. Miller Purple Heart said, meanie bot.
Captain Kaz/case said, this bot does let use weather too.
Ghosty said, anything else to ask? Cadmium said, it sure fucking does. D. Sorry, I am years old. Ellipsis question mark 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 question mark. Kenna said, are there any specific scene ideas you have? Like ultra specific? Ha ha ha. Miller Purple Heart said, do you have ref images for anything specific from the O? I'm not phrasing that right, but... Cadmium said. Kenna said. Cadmium said, how ominous. Cadmium said, Evil smiley face. Kenna said, "Sorry, Ghosty, we are so distracted." Ghosty said, "I have a few angsty scenes ready that I can't wait to start writing." Cadmium said, "KLJSKHDKGDHLDFSAHJGDL." Miller Purple Heart said, "Yes, angst." Kenna said, "No sneak peek. You hate us and want us to die actually, Jay." Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, "I heard angst." Cadmium said, "Giving me TTS perms was a mistake, Kenna." Angst. Ghosty said, "I don't have anything to actually show you aside from the presentation, sorry." Mars, Red said, Yummy angst." Kenna said, "Honestly, maybe it's good it's not reading out message emojis, you guys can't be trusted." Jay. Miller Purple Heart said, "Valid." Kenna said, "That's okay. Something to look forward to next time."
Captain Kaz/Kaz said, "We shall eagerly wait."
Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, "Don't hesitate to drop snippets." Kenna said, "It's okay if your PPT is shorter, but we can also just chat for a while. Totally up to you." Ghosty said, "Is it all right if I close the presentation and the screen share?" Kenna said, "Oversharing ideas is not a concept in PPT Nights." Absolutely. Ghosty said, flashbang."
Captain Kaz/Kaz said, "Flashbang."
Kenna said, "I minimized the stream before whatever happened. Do I even want to know, LMAO?"
Captain Kaz/Kaz said, "Do I still record?"
Ghosty said, "That's what I get for keeping my room dark." Kenna said, "You can record until we end the call." Miller Purple Heart said, "I had my brightness up too cause it was dark lol." Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, "Is flashbang a reference I'm not getting?" Kenna said, "I'm thinking we'll use yours, mine has been a little chaotic, hey hair." A flashbang is like a light and sound grenade.
Captain Kaz/Kaz said, "No, the white background flashed in our eyes, blinding us for a moment." "I'm sitting in the dark doing this."
Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, I see, oh damn." Miller Purple Heart said, "Especially those of us in the dark with our brightness all the way up."
Captain Kaz/Kaz said, "Yes."
Kenna said, I love saying flashbang to the most minuscule shit, hehehe, I love being dramatic. Not that y'all are.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, P.
Miller Purple Heart said, that and jump scare. Cadmium said, I overuse jump scare so bad. Kenna said, literally, jump scare is a classic move.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, how dare you, Kenna? I am not dramatic in the slightest. I take full offense to that/silly/J.
Cadmium said, I see anything enter my periphery at any speed and I'm like, whoa, jump scare. Kenna said, yes actually yeah, I meant to bully all of you for sure. Ghosty said, I'm sorry if this seems annoying, but I have to keep asking to sorta get back on track. Any other questions? Miller Purple Heart said, anything slightly surprising, or if I see something from the internet in real life too. Kenna said, not at all. I think my questions are answered. I'm so excited for you to share more later. That, not at all, was to you worried about being annoying, not to asking if there's questions. Miller Purple Heart said, I'm trying to think if I have more questions, cause honestly the presentation was so good it answered what I normally ask about an owl. Kenna said, exactly. Playlist and everything.
Captain Kaz/Kes said, yuppers.
Astral Rec Ringed Planet. Michael said, if you write or draw anything about the Bim and Worf dynamic, drop it here, we def need this duo more. Ghosty said, welp, I'll be posting more about this and a few of the others I have, later. I have a small collection of ours. I have maybe right now. Kenna said, yes, please greater than. If that's everything you wanted to share and you want to finish up, we can end whenever you're ready. Miller Purple Heart said, what time period does this take place in? I'm curious, cause also do the characters dress different from their canon appearances? Ghosty said, I haven't decided that yet, but I'll figure it out soon. Kenna said, I would love more visuals eventually. The ones you shared so far are so sick. Ghosty said, I think I'm ready to end the call now. And I'll get to making more art and writing for the O soon.
Captain Cas/Case said, this was fun.
Kenna said, fire. Amazing PPT. Cadmium said, Miller Purple Heart said, can't wait to see where you go with this. The ideas and vibes have been awesome. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, okie dokie. I'm excited to see more. Ghosty said, well, I'm gonna leave now. Bye-bye. Astral Wreck Ringed Planet, Michael said, bye-bye.
Captain Cas/Case said, bye-bye.
Miller Purple Heart said, bye. Cadmium said,